The challenges with imported supplies, next slide, is the is there a picture of Phoenix? There you go, one that slide. Is the increasing demand for our limited supplies. California's had the luxury for over 50 years of being able to rely on overdrafting or taking more water than they had rights to the Colorado River, because the other western states didn't have a demand for their water rights. And in 2003, the world kind of changed for San Diego and Southern California. We had to live within our allotted amount. One of the reasons for the rise in cost of water over the several years is that cheaper water supply from Colorado, it was not available, and we now have to rely on more expensive water from Northern California and other sources of water. So the world has changed over the last 10 years with regards to our water supply mix. So you ask, what's different over the last 10 years? That's one big change, is we are unable to rely on the Colorado River to kind of buffer our demands, which is why we need more storage too, because we really need to target storage now to get us through those years rather than the Colorado River. But part of the reason is that the growth in the western United States, Arizona and Nevada, their demand for water has gone up. And so the reallocation of water, and the Bureau of Reclamation is consistently looking at the outlook of the Colorado River and what the demands are in the future, and how are we going to allocate that water proportionally throughout the group. So it's an ongoing discussion, and the water authorities engage in that process all the time. Next slide. We talk about cost briefly. I think I touched this part. Want to move to the next slide? Yeah. I'm sorry. My pages must be mixed up. I talked about challenges. Okay, excuse me. The rising costs. I'm sorry. We talked about costs a little bit. The costs have been going up, and they're going to continue to go up. And part of that is just maintaining infrastructure. I mentioned the Bay Delta. There's maybe a $10 to $20 billion fix in the Bay Delta. Somebody's going to have to pay for that cost, and it probably be allocated over the end users, San Diego, Metropolitan Water District, as well as the Central Valley and other contractors of that water. But that's a big cost in the horizon that we're looking at with regards to that. And it's talking about the Bay Delta a little bit. Those levees are over 100 years old in some places. They're very fragile. And this is really our main focus, because a large portion of our supply of water is up there. But in addition to that, conservation, you've heard this, conservation, we use less water, we have fixed costs. That actually, if you save water, we have to raise the cost to pay for those fixed costs. So it's kind of a reverse there, but that's part of it too. And then again, the additional new resources of water are more expensive, and when you look at the portfolio of our water supply as we go forward, and I'll show you some examples, water only gets more expensive, and that's going to be driving costs up in the future. This is a very interesting slide, because if you look at 1991, San Diego was dependent on imported water through Metropolitan Water District for 95% of our water supply. And we were going through a very severe drought back in the late 80s and early 90s. And we were threatened with, through preferential rights through the Metropolitan Water District, to be cut back 50% of our water supplies in 1991. And then we had the Miracle March with the rainfall, and they never enacted that 50% cut. But that was really a wake-up call for San Diego on how vulnerable we were to rely on 95% of our water through the Metropolitan Water District. At that time, the board and the Water Authority moved forward to diversify the water supply so that we would not be vulnerable again to that type of situation. So we moved forward with diversification. If you look at 2011, this is our water portfolio today. We're reliant on Metropolitan Water District for 47% of our water supply. A large portion of our supply, the light blue and the red area, are actually from transfers. The blue area, I believe, is the transfer from the Imperial Irrigation. That's the largest agriculture to urban water transfer in the United States, whereby through conservation at the Imperial Irrigation District, we're able to transfer water to San Diego for the next 75 years, a large portion. And then we did take on the All-American and Coachella canal lining, and because we built new concrete canals and we save the water from being going into the groundwater table. We actually can transfer that water from the Colorado over to us for a long term. So that's actually new water. It's from the Colorado River, but we're saving it. It's new water that was being lost. And then the rest of our portfolio is with recycled water. The desalination water is about a small percentage now, because we do have some groundwater desalination with some of the agencies, and then groundwater, and then local surface water. So, and conservation also was a big part, 12% conservation versus 20 years ago. The interesting thing is that in the last 20 years, we use the same amount of water today as we did in 1991, and the population is 600,000 people more, and our GDP for the area has over doubled in real dollars. So we've been really successful over the last 20 years to manage our water. That's actually a good story. Let's move on to the climate. We're all familiar, San Diego is a very arid climate. We average about 12 inches a year. And so we have very little water rainfall. In fact, the last time San Diego sustained itself on just local water was 1947. During World War II in 1943, President Roosevelt signed the executive order authorizing the canal to be built down to San Diego to supply water supplies, because San Diego was such an important military base. But that was really the genesis of how the canal was built and the reason for getting water to San Diego. But we really are in a dry area, so we really have to manage our water resources carefully. What San Diego County does not have, that a lot of counties up the coastline do have, is groundwater storage capacity, or groundwater tables. And you can see by the different colors up there in the Los Angeles area, even Orange County and the Riverside area, they have large underground water basins, and they're able to get a lot of their water supplies from those underground basins. San Diego, we literally have very small underground water basins, and therefore we can't tap into that as an asset as we move forward. And which is one of the reasons why we're building the San Vicente Dam, raising that. We built the Olivenhain Dam, and the whole emergency storage project is tied into providing water for us to sustain us through a long period of time. Let's look out to the future in 2020. Right now, we're on target to move forward with our diversified water portfolio. And you can see by 2020, we're going to be greatly diversified. So over a 30-year period, we've really going to be a diversified water supply throughout the county. One caveat there is the desalination project, and we're going to talk about that later today. This includes the Carlsbad desalination project that would provide about 10% of our water supply. So we're moving forward. I think this is a tremendous success story, and we're not stopping here, and we're continuing to work to meet our objectives. With that, that kind of concludes my overview. I'd like to turn over the program at this time to Toby, and Toby's going to talk about local water resources.